Morris whenever you're ready.
On the effects of tourism in Tanzania. For our argument, has tourism growth in Tanzania benefited local communities near the national parks? For our first information of background, it is the spike of tourism. The spike of tourism growth had the largest effect after the year 2021 due to the growth of it being around 130% of the rise in visitors. And in 2023, the economic profit and growth rose around 17%. And then these percentages came from the World Travel and Tourism Council, which is a professional global tourism organization and states the factual statistics of research done over those 4 or 5 years. The second piece is the national parks. These national parks were the places that the tourism would be more higher a chance to go to, and they were the main destinations of these tourists. The first one is the Sedani National Park, which is unique because it's the only park that has wildlife and the ocean front with the beach along the Indian Ocean. The second national park was the Central Zone Park, which is the important areas to bring money, and local communities do not always get the benefit equally. And this came from research from the Kiso Trust, which shows the communities living near the Sedani National Parks were definitely affected by these tourism.
So our group identified 3 main problems, one of them being money and the unequal distribution of money. So tourism generates income through visitor spending, park fees, and taxes. A significant share of this income is captured by foreign investors, multinational hotel chains, and large franchises. Local residences, especially those in rural communities, if there are tourism benefits, they receive little to none. And then this is supported in the Kesho Trust, which is a conservation-focused organization engaged in long-term community studies. They emphasize that many communities have limited access to resources and income opportunities, reinforcing concerns that economic gains are not evenly distributed. Our second problem that we identified was selective benefits. Tourism-related jobs, business ownership opportunities, and infrastructure improvements are often more accessible to individuals who already possess capital, education, or social networks. Elites and established entrepreneurs are better positioned to invest in hotels and tourism infrastructure. Nearby residents may see roads, lodges, or parks develop but experience limited direct participation in resulting in economic activity. The Kisho Trust highlights barriers rooted in class, gender, and social marginalization that restricts some of the rural groups to actually getting benefits from tourism. And the third problem we identified was women's rights. In some Tanzanian communities, women face social and structural barriers to employment, leadership roles, land ownership, and entrepreneurship opportunities. These barriers can prevent women from fully benefiting from tourism expansion, even when jobs and markets are present. And the Equality Tourism website talks about this. They did a study called Empowering 30 Tanzanian Women Through Tourism and Farming, and they said that even that women face very limited effects from the tourism industry, and if they wanted to get any of these benefits, they would have to go through training, and it limits their income opportunities. So for our first solution, we have more advertisement. We will do this through social media and billboards. So this would involve using social media to share wildlife, culture, and community-based tourism experiences with global audiences. Advertising would also include creating or improving tourism websites, making it more accessible for travelers to plan trips and connect directly with local businesses. So for the implications, we would have advertising worldwide and through websites. So advertising can promote tourism to international audiences in Tanzania, increasing awareness and potential tourist arrivals. Digital access, expanded tourism websites make trip planning easier and help travelers discover and book local businesses, tours, and community experiences directly. An example of this is when the Kenya Tourism Board, which borders Tanzania, they did a marketing campaign called Magical Kenya where they increased their social media footprint and advertising. And in the 2022, their tourist numbers were about 1.48 million, and they had a 31 increase to 1.95 million. And the Kenya Tourism Board is the team solely responsible for Kenya's marketing, and it's a government organization. And the limitations of advertising is a high cost. Major advertising campaigns require funding for content production, media placement, and partnerships which constrain government or tourism budgets. Ad fatigue, so if they keep seeing the same ads over and over again, they're going to become immune to the actual effects of it, and it can cause them to lose interest and ignore promotional messages.
Our solution 2 is community-led tourism, which is tourism where local residents plan, manage, and benefit from tourism activities in their community. Examples of this are local historic sites, which help protect and promote heritage and preserve culture. Another example is craft workshops, which helps women more, going back to how they struggle with women's rights. This is the type of job women benefit from. It also helps create local income and helps preserve traditional skills, such as passing skills from elders to youth. And it also provides income and financial independence for women. Our implications are skill development, which can help create employment opportunities, which can reduce poverty conditions. Another positive is reduce dependence in foreign operators, which is where countries rely on outside companies. If Tanzanians don't have the proper skills, they rely on outside companies to do their tourism, which they just eventually end up taking control of tourism. And if they don't like what the outside companies are doing, they won't really have a say. But if you have the proper skills and training in tourism, they can have their own tourism and benefit from this, which can also keep the profits increasing in the community. Another implication is cultural preservation, which protects traditions and helps create sustainable economic opportunities. This also attracts more tourists because the tourism is more authentic and it feels more meaningful to the visitors. Our limitations are not enough people are interested, which can lead to fewer tour guides, poor management sites, and weak community organizations. Another limitation is over-tourism risk, which is just too many people are involved. This can cause environmental damage, such as pollution, wildlife disturbance, or even water shortages. This can harm the environment, and we're trying to help them benefit from tourism, which this can also lead to cost of living to rise, which can cause prices in food and housing to increase and cause local people to be pushed out of their local town centers. In conclusion, tourism benefits help give people more opportunity in their communities, such as employment in hotels and companies and parks. This also helps them live in a more safer environment and protects wildlife in national parks and protects the nature and cultural heritage. This leads to economic stability, which helps community development and public services like schools and hospitals, which overall benefits the local community.
All right, let's look at your questions. All right, Cadence. What is the way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
My individual research was more on the lens of the environment, and our solutions and resolutions was more about how the tourism would be more led with the money and how it would affect the social community of people. And it just made me think of how can this money affect the environment? How can all this tourism and all these people coming in affect the national parks, the wildlife, and just the environment in general?
All right. Ryan, how did the group decide to include Sarah Kate's perspective or her conclusion into the overall presentation?
We included Sarah Kate's perspective, which is of the actual interactions with the humans. We included this in our solution too, which talked about doing workshops with the kids. We included her paper mostly also talking about the women's rights. She talked about the social aspect of tourism and how it affects local communities. And looking into women's rights, you can see how tourism actually affects those communities.
All right. Sarah Kate, if you had another member, what other perspective or limitation could they have researched that would have made a useful contribution to your project?
I think the futuristic limbs would have really helped our research because this would have given us an idea of what tourism could have been like in the future and how it could have benefited the community for Tanzanians and how the tourism industry would look like in the future.
All right. Good job. Thanks, guys.